Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the UCLA Insider Podcast. My name is Luke Joseph, and today we're going to be continuing our discussion on the top 30 UCLA football players for the upcoming 2026 college football season. But before we get into that, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share with all your friends and family, as it really helps out myself and helps out everyone else on the On SI YouTube channel. Without further ado, let's begin. So, as we all know, we've been discussing the top 30 players for the upcoming season for UCLA football. And yesterday, we took a look at the secondary and we discussed one of the players, number 25 on the list, Dante Lovett Jr., excuse me. And, he was number 25. And now we're going to be continuing looking at the secondary as we are going to be talking about DJ Barksdale. Barksdale at South Point High School in Rock Hill, South Carolina. He has had a very inspirational story. And, he was very overlooked coming out of the 2023 high school class. Came out unranked with 0 stars as a safety prospect, according to 24/7 Sports. He did not let those 0 stars define him, though, as a player. He definitely did not. He became a very decorated player, earning the high school Blitz junior game MVP honors, led South Point to a 4A state championship in his junior year, as well as being named the title game MVP. He would be a multi-time all-region selection in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Region would be named a Region 3 Defensive Player of the Year his senior year in 2022. His junior year and senior year would be an all-state selection and was the Palmetto Champions Upper State Defensive Player of the Year in his senior year. And even with all those, accolades, it still wasn't enough for him to, get offers from Division I or from many Division I schools. He only had 5 in total, with 3 of them being Division I offers from Gardner-Webb, Army, and James Madison. And he only had 2 Division II schools from Benedict College and Lenoir-Rhyne College. And, he committed to James Madison. He went to play under then head coach Kurt Signetti. And since joining James Madison, he became a standout player who got better and better each season. His freshman year was really exciting. He was primarily the kick returner. He played in all 13 games as a kick returner, but he established himself as a big threat returning kicks with 15 kick returns for 319 yards. He would have a season-long 41-yard kickoff return at Utah State, and had a season-high 112 kickoff return yards on 5 attempts versus Old Dominion. And even though he was the kick returner, which was, I would say, his primary position at that point in time, he would still find his way on taking snaps on defense. He had 15 total tackles and 7 solo tackles, as well as having a season high 5 tackles against Utah State and Georgia Southern. During the off season, though, Kurt Signetti would take the job at Indiana, and James Madison would hire Bob Chesney as he would take over as the head coach. And instead of following Signetti, Barksdale would stick with Chesney at James Madison, and Chesney would move him to the nickel spot full time, where he would have a really, really good sophomore year. And because in his first full year playing the nickel corner spot, he'd been named a full-time starter and was definitely a breakout player with 42 tackles, including 27 solo tackles to go with 5 tackles for a loss, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 2 interceptions, including a pick 6, as well as 3 pass breakups. He was super, super impactful, and it just, he just didn't skip a beat, even with the departure of Kurt Signetti. He was a big reason as to why the Dukes would finish the year with an 8-4 record in the regular season and would even compete in a bowl game, as he had a really good showing in the Boca Raton Bowl, against Western Kentucky with 4 tackles, including 2 for a loss and even a forced fumble. And with his play, not only did James Madison win a close 27-17 victory, but he would also be named the defensive MVP of that game. And after such a great, amazing sophomore season, his junior year would honestly even be better, in my opinion. I know it's kind of looking at the stats. He had fewer tackles, including only 36 total tackles, with 22 solo tackles. But I'm of the opinion that should be looked at as a positive. You never really want your corners to have so many tackles, as that it just means that they're not guarding well enough, and the quarterback is throwing the ball to the man that they're defending, and since they're the closest one to that receiver who just had the ball thrown to him, they're going to be most likely the one to tackle him. And if he has fewer tackles, then that means that the quarterback isn't throwing the ball to his man, and there's no one really to tackle if the ball's on the other side of the field. And my assumption kind of backed it up with he was tied, finished third in the conference, in the Sun Belt Conference, with 12 pass breakups, with 14 passes defended. And he would also finish the year with 3 tackles for a loss and 2 interceptions. I mean, he had a really, really good season, and he was a big reason as to why James Madison will finish the year 12-1 in the regular season, or 11-1, excuse me, as well as a Sun Belt Conference championship. And they would go on to play in the college football playoff, where they would ultimately get trounced against way tougher competition in the Big Ten, in Oregon, with the Ducks winning 54-31. But that season was just a huge eye opener for many in college football, and it kind of established himself as one of the more underrated nickel corners, or just underrated players in college football. And Bob Chesney, who would, after 2 years, with James Madison, where they went 8-4 his first year, and 12-2 his second year, he would take the job at UCLA. And this offseason, he was tasked with fixing that the Bruins secondary, as it had its fair shares of ups and downs. They were dead last in interceptions with just 4, and they were tied for 8th in the Big Ten in passes defended with 36, which is middle of the road. But you want to be able to take the ball away more, and he made it a priority to fix that entire defense. But but he also needed to find players to give that secondary a big boost, and realize that he needed corners. He needed corners to do that, and so we got guys like Osiris Gilbert, Jason McMillan, and Dante Lovett Jr., who we talked about earlier. You got those guys to kind of compete on the outside opposite of Scooter Jackson, who was originally entered the portal after a really good season last year with the Bruins, but decided to come back. But he was missing that player, that nickel corner that really fits his defensive scheme. And it just so happened that Barksdale was still in the portal, and Barksdale would follow Chesney to UCLA as he would shore up that nickel corner spot. And so, with him in that nickel corner spot, Scooter Jackson on one side and whomever plays opposite of Jackson on the outside, I think this Bruins defense is going to be vastly improved, especially the secondary, I think it might be one of the better units in the Big Ten. And I'm just overall excited to see this unit in action next year. And as for Barksdale himself, I think he will instantly become a fan favorite. He's really tough. He's really hard nosed, very intelligent. He's gonna be a great leader in the locker room. He knows what Bob Chesney likes to run on defense. Knows the mindset, and he can really help out. Kind of like the newer guys who are transferring in, as well as the players Chesney was able to retain, like Nico Maliava. And I think he's going to become a fan favorite. I mean, just kind of going over his story again. I mean, this guy had to essentially claw his way to being in the position where he is now. I mean, you go from being unnoticed, three Division I offers. One of them was to the Army, and the other one, was just a low-level FCS school. But you go to James Madison, which became a FCS school the year after you graduated from high school. And, his freshman year, he instantly put the world on notice that, he's here to stay. He's here to be, a really good player in college football. And his whole story is something that, there will be, a lot of fans kind of looking up to him as being someone who overcame all that adversity. And, I think in this senior year, I think it's going to be, being in a better conference. I think he'll be able to show out a lot more for UCLA. I think he'll get more attention, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the possibility of an unranked kid from South Carolina who was overlooked his entire career being, an NFL draft pick for 2027. I wouldn't be shocked. It might not be, round 1, round 2, round 3, but potentially being a day 3 selection after being told, or essentially being told, that you weren't going to amount to anything. I think it's one of the great stories of college football, is someone overcoming a label. And I think that he's definitely overcome the label of being an unranked player to now being one of the better players in college football. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. DJ Barksdale, I'm super excited to see, how he plays for UCLA. He's definitely a 30, definitely top 25 player for UCLA next year. He's going to be a really, really fun player to watch. And, again, my name is Luke Joseph. Thank you for watching. And until next time, I will see you all later.